Your Omaha High is being sponsored by Best Buy Signs, creator of the Omaha Parks program, OmahaFastFoods.com, Kohl's Pharmacy and Home Care, Certified Transmission, Centris Federal Credit Union, Shold-It, Rotella's Italian Bakery, La Peeps Restaurant, Performance Auto Group, Two Men and a Truck, Crane Landscape Construction, Shout Weekly, Mid-America Speakers Bureau, Farm Bureau Financial Services, Critter Control. Welcome to Your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg, the show that will leave you feeling great about yourself, Omaha's heroes, and Omaha, where we live, work, and play. So park yourself on the bench and have fun. Hi, and welcome to Your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg, the show that you turn to every Saturday morning to learn new insights on how to live a wonderful life. No matter where you are, at a high level, mid-level, or a level that you're still growing, you're going to learn new ways to always take yourself, your mind, and everyone else with you to much higher heights. We basically do this in 3 different ways. The first way is you learn 4 new motivational vignettes. These are originals that you can personalize just for yourself. And then we learn about a marvelous organization here in town that does some tremendous nonprofit work. And then today we've got some great guests for you. We've got a couple. Their name is Mr. and Mrs. Greenberg. Now, I have to do a disclaimer. They have absolutely no relationship to me whatsoever. I went on all the websites trying to find out if we're related. We are not. So let me assure you of that. But what are we going to learn from Mr. and Mrs. Greenberg, Barton and Caryl? They've been married 63 years. How do they do it? How do they accomplish it? What can you learn from it? You'll find out later on when we introduce Barton Greenberg and his marvelous bride, Caryl. We'll be back with you in just a few moments. But first, we want to start out with talking about playing cards. Playing cards. When you go to a game, it could be gin rummy, it could be poker, it could be anything, you're dealt some cards. Now, you know in life, people always have an expression and they say, well, you know what? This is the cards that we were dealt in life. There's nothing we can do about it. That's just the way it is. But I want you to go back into your mind. When you're playing those cards, you get the first shuffle. You take a look at those cards. You begin to analyze them. And you say to yourself, what is it that I can do with these cards? Which ones can I discard? And which ones will I get to make the hand that I have even better? We study it. We look at other people's faces. We do everything we possibly can to make sure that when we do it again, we're going to be doing much better. So let's think about it. Let's play poker. You take 3 cards, you throw them out, the dealer gives you another 3, and then again you begin to rearrange those to make sure that you've got a good hand, maybe the best. But in life, we don't do that, do we? We get that deck of cards and we say, oh, well, you know what? I got to trudge through life. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't change them. I can't rearrange them. I'm just going to sit back and accept the misery of the cards that I was dealt. Well, don't do that anymore. Don't even use that expression, this is the cards I was dealt. And if you find yourself doing that, I want you to do the opposite. I want you to say, just like in a game, you discard them, you turn them in, you get new ones, and you continue to do that every hand. So from now on, never use that expression. Or if you do, play life the same way you play cards. And always, always look for better ways to make your hand better. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with giving cards to someone else to make it better for them. Now, you know, many times we all go out to eat. And we go out to eat, and then all of a sudden, what do we have? We have a menu. And in some restaurants, you have a major selection. You're sitting there with your friends, you're sitting there with your family, and you take a look at all the alternatives that are available to you. Now, sometimes we have our favorite dishes, and sometimes we don't. And then all of a sudden, when we think we've made up our mind for what dish we want, what happens when the waiter and waitress comes over? They totally, absolutely destroy it. Why? They introduce us and you to the special of the day. So just when you're about to make up your mind, you have yourself salivating for that extra special dish, here they come by and they destroy it with extra alternatives. But you know what? You're happy to hear it. Sometimes you actually change your mind based on somebody else's advice or somebody else's recommendation. In life, though, do we do the same thing? Oh, no. You kidding me? We take a look at one thing and we say, nothing will ever change my mind. I don't want anybody's advice. I don't want anybody's guidance. I know what I want. I've made a selection of the little things that are available to me in life, and nobody is allowed in to tell me what to do. Now, that's not the right way to do it, because people do have great advice for you. People do have great suggestions. And what we need to do is to keep our minds open to somebody else's ideas, somebody else's specials. Invite them in and say, hey, you know what? This is what I'm thinking of doing. I just want to share the thought process with you. Are you going to do it? Do you think it's the right thing? Or do you have another idea? So anytime that you're planning anything, always think about it as if you're going out to eat, where somebody is coming in giving you extra guidance. Keep that open mind. Add it to your menu of the things that you will and can select in life. And that way, your mind is always open. Now, if you look outside, you're going to find something very interesting. You're going to see these trees. And these trees, during the spring and the summer and the early fall, they were beautiful. They were green. We loved it. And then what happens? The fall begins to come. And what happens to each and every one of those leaves? They disappear. They fall to the ground. But I feel sorry for the tree, because what's coming up? The winter, the harsh winter, the winter of blowing winds, the winter of freezing temperatures, the winter of snow, the winter of torment, the winter of harsh. But what does the tree do? Does the tree normally die out? Does a tree complain? Or does the tree strengthen itself during the harshest winter so that when the spring finally comes back, that tree is all ready to bloom? That tree is all ready to provide new ideas, new guidance, new scenery to everybody. Now in life, we want to be as happy as a tree in spring and the summer and early fall. But there are things that happen. There are harsh things that happen. There are circumstances that each and every one of us sometimes are unable to understand why they're happening. It could be loss of employment. It could be who knows what. We need to take a lesson from that tree. That tree has built itself in a defense mechanism that absolutely dissuades anything from affecting it. We need to do the same thing. Bad things are going to happen. Harsh times are going to come. We know that. But we need to strengthen ourselves so that when things get better, we are ready to bloom and we're ready to show off how great we did during the bad times. And all of us around this time of the year, we are getting our flu shots. I think flu shots are so interesting because they're supposed to protect us from getting sick. But I have a question for each and every one of us who has ever taken a flu shot. How do we know it worked? Well, one of the things we say, well, I never got the flu. But how do you know that the flu never entered your body and the actual medicine took over and got rid of it? We don't. We have the faith. We do the protection in advance. The same thing in life. We don't necessarily have to take flu shots, but we can take encouragement shots. We can take those things that when something bad could happen to us or try and get into us, we've already done everything we can to deflect it. It could be mind motivation. It could be positive thinking. It could be any one of those things. So always, always give yourself a flu shot of positive thought, of positive medicine, because when the bad things happen, you'll be able to get rid of them. So let's just review quickly the 4 motivational vignettes that you have learned that you can take into your life. The cards you are dealt, be happy with them or change them out. When you go out to eat, take advice, both in life and at the restaurant. And remember that tree, be as strong as they are, and take that one positive shot of a flu medicine, flu vaccine, and positive reinforcement when things are good for you. Now this week we're going to feature the Midlands Mentoring Partnership. It is a backbone organization that works to increase the quality and quantity of mentoring programs right here in Omaha. MMP partners with 11 mentoring agents in the Omaha area, and they are Big Brothers, Big Sisters of the Midlands, Girls Incorporated of Omaha, Hope Center for Kids, Kent Bellows Mentoring Program, Kids Can Community Center, Ollie Webb Incorporated, Partnership for Kids, Release Ministries, Teammates Mentoring Program, Youth Emergency Services, and 100 Black Men of Omaha Incorporated. There are 30,000 youth living under the poverty line right here in the Omaha area. Of those, only 3,000 have been fortunate enough to gain the helpful guidance and support of a formal mentor. Quality mentoring relationships in the community can lead to fewer teen dropouts, a decrease in teen substance abuse, fewer teen pregnancies, and a more engaged workforce for businesses who have employees that mentor. If you're interested in becoming a mentor, visit the Mentoring Midlands Partnership right here in Omaha, Nebraska on their website. Take a short survey to find out which program is best for you and take the time to help others. And now the time we've been waiting for. 63 years in marriage, together in holy marriage and bliss and matrimony. And again, I want to give you a disclaimer. We're going to be talking to Barton Greenberg and his bride, Caryl Greenberg. They are absolutely no relationship to me. We are independent, and we're going to start learning from them. Barton, thank you so much for being on the show today. Caryl, thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
So let's get right down to the beginning. You've been married 63 years. How did you meet?
Came back from service.
Okay, which we thank you for, by the way.
You're welcome. By the way, I like the way you made that presentation.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Barton. Appreciate that.
So there were parties, numerous parties, great opportunity to meet people that I had not known.
Right.
Among them was Caryl.
Okay.
And I observed her and found that she had a number of qualities that I was looking for.
Okay. And what were those qualities, Barton?
Well, she presented herself well.
All right. That's a great way to phrase it.
She had good intelligence.
Okay.
She indicated a lot of the factors that are important to me.
All right.
Also, she was dating a friend of both of ours, and I didn't like that.
Oh, okay.
So
is it a bit of jealousy here, Barton?
Absolutely.
All right.
And so that gave me the courage to ask her to be my wife.
Excellent. So, Caryl, I want to go back to the beginning. Now,
Sure.
He was on the hunt for somebody with a list of qualifications, and I didn't know you back then, but it sounds like you were a bit of a party girl. I won't go into that. If you were in a lot of parties as Barton was. So how did you feel when Barton first came over to you and asked you out?
I'm sure I was delighted because I had known about him. Our parents knew each other, and my mother thought very highly of them and of him because she had seen him when he was a little boy, sell magazines so he could earn a bicycle.
Oh,
she thought that was terrific.
All right.
So
he came over to you, and you felt pretty good about it because that's what your parents were looking for.
Actually, I think I nudged a couple of my friends to say, why don't you tell him to ask me out?
Oh, interesting. Now, did you get those messages, Barton, or did you act independently?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure. But either way, you got together.
Yes.
And you obviously fell in love. And here we are 63 years later, and it's very, very apparent that you're still in love. What is it that kept everything together during those 63 years? What makes it click?
The ups and downs of life, which we met together.
Okay.
Which she encouraged me and I encouraged her to follow the things that she wanted to do, and she was more than willing to
allow you to be
encourage
independent?
me to do what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And we agreed on many, many things, and got it through my thick head that she was very helpful and would continue to be helpful, and I would hope for a long life together.
Excellent. So you were helpful to him. How helpful was he to you? And what were some of the things you were looking for? What do you see in Barton?
Integrity.
Ooh, okay.
I guess honesty goes along with that.
Sure.
Kindness.
Yes.
Respect for other people. very good to his parents. Just things that seemed important in
Seem
life.
important and are still important today.
Of course they are.
Sure, sure.
And I'm not sure that we articulate that in our 20s. But looking back, somewhere in the back of our mind, those things turned out to be very important.
Absolutely. So I want to go ahead and just kind of recap a little bit as to what we're talking about. Here we have an individual who wanted something, had a list, went out and got it. And it turned out to be, I would say, a perfect match. Because as you look at this couple, there is respect for each other. There is understanding for each other. And it sounds to me like no one is trying to change each other. They're allowing each partner to live an independent life, which I think is very, very admirable. So the question for you, what are the 3 most important things in a good marriage? What would you say?
The 3 most important
Things in a good marriage.
I've never counted.
Okay, or some of
but
them.
it's certainly the love for each other.
Okay.
The respect.
All right.
Wanting basically the same things. In other words, do you want, at the beginning, to find out, do you want children?
Okay.
Do you want to travel?
Right.
Do you want to stay in Omaha?
Sure,
Do you
sure.
want to go to, do you want
Do you like going to the
Go-
movies, French restaurant, or Chinese restaurant, things like that? But what happens, Barton, if maybe you want to go to a Chinese restaurant and Caryl wants to go just to make it up to an Italian restaurant? If that happens, who yields first, or how does that work?
Well, we reached an agreement.
Okay, all right.
It's what she wants to do.
Okay. Okay. Now, how long does it take to reach that agreement? I mean, are we stubborn about it, or do we just give in right away? So is it more
Right.
important not to win the victory, but just to keep everybody happy?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think what happens all too often in life, people just want to be the victor. Hey, I won. I'm the individual. Things are going to get done my way. And we do have a tendency to try and arrange our life that way. But as we can tell, no, the important thing is for other people to be happy, and that's what we always have to strive for. And I'll tell you something. I've been married myself. It's 44 years, and just the other day, I celebrated with Caryl, my wife, 50 years of knowing each other. I actually met her, as I mentioned on one previous broadcast, the day I turned 15. And one of the things that we have done to sustain our relationship over 50 years is always to be friends. And I'm going to ask you about that. Do you consider yourself good friends in a marriage?
Yes, friends.
Yes. And how would you define being a good friend?
Supporting the other person.
Yeah.
No matter what. Not always agreeing necessarily.
Sure.
But saying, you know, in the long run, if this is what you want to do, try it.
Sure.
Either
sure.
it'll work or it won't work. And,
Right.
But it's your thought. And I think we respect each other's intelligence, so there's no reason to put the other one down.
And it's a wonderful way to phrase it, because all too often, I think you might have mentioned it one time when we were having a discussion, one person doesn't call the other person an idiot. And we've heard that so many times. You idiot, you don't think my way, you don't think this way. You can't be able to think like that. And I think one of the messages I'm getting out of this is the word respect for each other. And I bet you when you wake up in the morning, each time you look at each other, you reignite the emotional feelings, you reignite the emotional attachment that you have with each other, you ask each other about how your day is going, and you do that because you really care. You really care about the successful life of the other person. And if you have the opportunity to give some advice to people who are just getting married today, what advice would you give them?
Take it easy.
Okay. All right.
Compromise. Respect the other person.
Okay.
I find that giving in helps. The situation when I want to do something, she then gives in.
Okay. All right. All right.
And not wanting to hurt the other person.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's so important. So when you give in, Caryl, to something that Barton wants to do, but it's not necessarily within your sphere of comfort or what makes you happy, how do you feel about doing that? Do you feel good that you're able to get out of a boundary that might be self-imposed and say, you know what, if he likes it, I'll go along with it?
I wouldn't say I get really thrilled about it,
Okay.
but I
Which is
I
fine.
agree to do.
All right.
He was in the kind of business that going to certain things, and that's where I wasn't the party girl.
Okay.
Where I didn't know people,
Sure.
and I guess it wasn't my comfort zone, so I went along because I knew it was the right thing to do.
Sure.
And then I'm sure I had a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there are always people to talk to.
And Barton, I'm going to ask you a question. Once you gave in to something that Caryl wanted to do, and it was done with, and maybe you didn't have a good time, how did you feel about it anyway? The fact that you went ahead and did it, but it made her happy. Pretty good?
That's part of the deal.
That's part of the deal, absolutely. And you know what? It is so interesting, and this is why I wanted to have this couple on. It is so interesting because you know what? It's not hard. It isn't hard to have a long, sustainable marriage, to have a long, sustainable relationship. If we begin to apply some of the principles that Barton and Caryl are teaching us here today, they're so important. And that is giving, not necessarily giving in, but giving the other person an opportunity to enjoy what they enjoy doing, and at the same time take a little bit of enjoyment that you're letting them do that. And compromise, we hear that so often, but how many of us actually practice it? How many of us say to ourselves, you know what, I'm just not going to stay in the position that I'm in. I'm going to move from that position because I'm not going to get hurt by it. The opposite is going to happen. I'm going to be able to help out my life's partner. Because, you know, one of the words that Barton said earlier is so important. And he said, this is the person that I want to live my life with, which allows me to go back to the beginning. I didn't cover the proposal. How did the proposal go? Who proposed to who? And where did you get the nerve to propose to this wonderful woman?
I said, do you? And she said, yes. How's that?
That was it. But you have to set that up for me. I mean, was it in a restaurant? Was it in a living room? Where was
No, it was in the living room.
Okay.
Yeah. I know we had been out and we were sitting on the couch, and I think there was a little smooching going on.
All right.
And I raised the question, would you consider being my wife?
Okay. And Caryl, do you remember how you responded to that?
I know I said yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure in exactly what words.
Okay. And
But
and just between me
yes.
and you, and let's pretend Barton wasn't here for a moment, just between me and you, are you glad he asked you to marry you?
for sure.
For sure.
For sure.
And you were waiting for him? Was he delaying the whole thing? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was one of the last of our crowd to be married.
All right. And so you were actually, was it one of those things that went through your mind and says, hey, Barton, it's about time he asked me? No,
I'm not
he's
sure
shaking
it was
his
about
head.
time. It was. I sure hope you do.
All right, terrific. And you were so thrilled that she said yes. It was.
Yes.
I mean, that was that. How long were you dating before you actually posed the question?
About 3 years. Off and on.
Off and on.
Yeah, I was away at school
Okay.
for most of the time.
All right.
And he was at different schools and
Sure.
just starting in his business.
All right. So if there was one thing, just one thing, that you want everybody who's listening to and watching this interview, if there's one thing you wanted them to remember, what would that be about having a great marriage for 63 years? Just one thing.
Compromise.
Compromise. Okay? Caryl?
Yeah, and understanding what the other person needs and wants.
That's it. You know what? It's simple. That's all that it is. It is simple. It is an understanding of what the other person wants. It's an understanding of compromise. It's mutual respect. And you know what? If you look at this couple, there's another word that they actually display that we haven't used yet. And that word is admiration. As I look at both of you, and I look at both of you talking to each other, there's no one trying to step over each other. I think you admire each other. And that's what you're going, yes. So what is a feeling of admiration? What is admiration?
Liking the way the other person acts.
There you go. Would you agree with that, Barton? So if there's somebody that you like the way they act and you have that feeling of admiration, that's all that it takes. Because there's one other thing, and they use the word love. Can you describe maybe what love means? And I know that's hard. All philosophers are trying to answer that question.
Oh, are you asking me?
Yeah. What is love?
It's the summation of all those attributes that she has that I like and respect.
Outstanding. You know, you're making my heart butter, Barton. I got to tell you that. Caryl?
Just about the same. It's very difficult to define.
Right.
And I'm sure it's different things at different times.
Right. Terrific. Barton, you have been absolutely amazing. You have taught me something that I will bring back to my wife. Caryl, you've taught me a lot also, as well as the crew. And you know, the one thing, I don't know if I mentioned earlier, not only are we not related, but my wife's first name is also Caryl. And I know sometimes my phone rings and people will say, hey, I'm looking for Caryl. And I say, Caryl, there's a phone call for you. But it was the Caryl Greenberg who's sitting on my left that everybody's looking for. And I can't blame them for doing that, because both Caryls in my life are just terrific ladies. Hey, I want to thank everybody for being with us on your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg. I want to review what we've all learned today. We have learned about the cards that you are dealt. We've learned about going out to eat and how that relates to life. We've learned about the tree in winter, and we've learned about taking positive flu shots. And of course, we learned about the great opportunity to have long-lasting marriages based on respect, based on opportunities, based on always being together. But you know what? It doesn't end there, because next week we've got another magnificent guest for you, an individual who has won 3 national football championships, an organization that has done a person that has done some tremendous work with youth, who has been an absolute fantastic motivator, and his name is James Kerwin. He's going to be back with us next week on your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg. We'll see you then. Thanks for joining us. Stay high. Your Omaha High was sponsored by Best Buy Signs, creator of the Omaha Parks program, OmahaFastFoods.com, Kohl's Pharmacy and Home Care, Certified Transmission, Centris Federal Credit Union, Shold-It, Rotella's Italian Bakery, La Peeps Restaurant, Performance Auto Group, 2 Men and a Truck, Crane Landscape Construction, Shout Weekly, Mid-America Speakers Bureau, Farm Bureau Financial Services, Critter Control,